You've got to name it to tame it. Hi there, my name is Thomas Brown, and I'd like to talk to you today in this video about defining our problem and setting goals around it so that we can continue our work in cognitive behavioral therapy. Just as a note, as I've said in other videos, this video is not designed to replace therapy with a professional. If you are feeling really overwhelmed and unsafe right now, it'll be important for you to call 911 or go to your local emergency room to get the treatment that you need. If you're feeling like this is a big problem and something that's a little bit beyond you, maybe something kind of 6 or 7 out of 10, it might be time for you to call a place like Qualia Counseling Services or another counseling agency in your area to seek some professional treatment. If this is a problem that you kind of feel is manageable, maybe something that you kind of want to go to a bookstore and get a self-help book about, then this video will probably help you out around that area. Again, this video is not designed to replace therapy with a professional. Okay, with that being said, let's kind of remind ourselves about where we're at. In previous videos, I talked about the cognitive model. That's that idea that our situations are linked to our thoughts, and that's linked to our behaviors, our moods, and the way our body is responding to things. If you haven't already kind of looked at those videos, it might be important for you to look at them so that you can understand where we're coming from with these next videos. The video after that, we took a look at how that cognitive model applies to things like depression, anxiety, and stress, and how those things can get stuck in vicious cycles and keep going and kind of perpetuate themselves. Today, I'd like to talk about the next step in this process, which I've already mentioned, is defining the problem and setting some goals so it can be nice and clear about where we're at and where we want to be. So as I've done in other videos, I'm going to go ahead and share our screen here, and we're going to get talking about naming it to tame it, or what's the problem. So lots of times we might come to realize that something's not the way we want it to be. Something's a little bit frustrating in our lives. Something is out of whack or not the way we'd like it to be. And it might feel kind of big and overwhelming. And it might be something kind of vague, like, oh, I just can't get motivated. I can't get motivated to do anything. Or it might be something like, everybody around me is horrible. And these are sort of big, broad statements that I would want to ask some questions about to kind of understand in a more specific way what might be going on with this particular issue in your life. Other times we might come to a self-help book or kind of come to the realization that, maybe it's more specific. I can't concentrate at work, or something else like I yell at the kids more than I'd like to. In either case, the more specific and defined we can be about the problem that we want to work on, the better results we'll get in working on it. And so if we've kind of got something in our minds that we want to work on, it can be really helpful to ask ourselves a series of questions to make it more clear and define it even further. So one of those first questions could be just clearly, what is the problem? What's going on with me that I don't like? And it could be something kind of broad like those other ones, or something a little more specific. In either case, get curious about it. Continue to wonder about it. What do I mean when I say? When I say everybody's horrible to me, well, what do I mean by everybody? Is it possible that every single person in my life is acting this way to me, or is it a more specific kind of group? And what do I mean when I say horrible? What are they doing that's so horrible? Are they calling me names whenever I walk by? Are they pushing me around? Are they gossiping about me? Or is it maybe that I think they're gossiping about me, but I don't really know? So kind of defining the terms and getting really clear about what we mean by these terms can help us with clarity and help us to know what we have to do about it. Other questions that we can ask is, does this thing that we're concerned about, does it happen all the time or just some of the time? And if it just happens some of the time, what are those times? We have to sort of get curious, like I've already said, and start narrowing things down. Further to that, it might be that we wonder, does this happen in all areas of our life or just in some specific areas of our life? If we go back to that example, we've kind of gone from everybody is horrible to me, to saying, well, no, okay, horrible means that I think maybe that they're gossiping about me, and it's not everybody, it's a few people at work that I'm concerned are gossiping about me. And that's really what the problem is. It makes me feel uncomfortable, and it makes me feel, like I don't want to go to work. And it's because of this, I think they're gossiping about me. So there we can see that we've gone from this big kind of broad statement to really getting more clear that, well, not everybody's horrible. It's these things that are happening that I'm wondering about or curious about. And then it can also be helpful to start wondering, well, have I had this problem for a while, but there have been times when I was able to overcome it, or I was able to do something positive about it. We ask ourselves that question so that we can kind of identify what we've done in the past that's helped, or if I've got some tools at my disposal that I can use to put against this problem. All right, so we've asked ourselves a series of these questions, and we've worked to take a broad idea and to kind of narrow it down. And so it can be really helpful to write out what the problem is. If we've got a journal or got maybe a CBT folder that we're working on, or even on our phones, it's really helpful to write down the problem so we can refer back to it and kind of see the progress we've made. Oh yeah, here's where I started and here's where I'm going. It's also important to define some goals once we've set that problem, so that the goals really make it clear about where we want to be. Sometimes the goals will be kind of clear. If we go to that example of people in my life, or I'm sorry, I yell too much at my children, the goal is kind of clear, isn't it? I don't want to yell as much. I'm going to yell less than I do now, or fewer times than I do now. If it's more that I'm concerned, or I think that there's a number of people that are gossiping about me at work, well, there could be a number of goals that come from that. Maybe the goal is to, address this with these people and have a conversation with them. Maybe the goal is to not care as much about this curiosity I have. Maybe the goal is just really find out if in fact they're gossiping about me. Probably the overarching goal is I want to feel better at work, but we might need to get even more specific about that. A lot of us have heard about SMART goals, and so I'll just go over those quickly here because it's really useful to get really specific and to use SMART goals when we're setting goals for ourselves. So what does SMART stand for? Specific. So we want to be really clear about what it is we want to do. I want to yell less at the kids. Measurable. So again, if I'm yelling these days about 3 or 4 times a week, I'd like to set a goal where I only yell once a week, or maybe no times a week at the children. That might be best. So that probably would be best. We want to make sure that it's attainable. Saying that I want to yell at the kids never again in my whole life, that's a pretty big goal. That, it's good to strive for something like that. Yelling at the kids is probably not a great parenting approach or style, but to never yell at them again, that might be pretty tough. So it might be that I only want to yell in extreme situations, or I only want to yell once a month, if that, ever. Another example that I often use is that people will sometimes say, well, I don't ever want to feel anxious. And that's not really an attainable goal. At its best, anxiety is kind of a useful emotion. It helps to kind of keep us going in some ways. And I won't get into that here, but only people who are asleep or not alive can achieve a goal of never being anxious. So we want to make sure that the goal is attainable. We also want to make sure it's relevant and that it applies to the problem that we're wanting to work on, and that there's a bit of a time limit to it. If we leave it open forever, well, that's not going to give us much parameters or much motivation to work on it. But if we say, I'd like to get this achieved by the end of the summer or over the next 6 weeks or so, that'll help to kind of contain it a little bit. So there we go. We want to name it to tame it. We want to define the problem clearly, asking ourselves a series of questions to get it really narrowed down, and then to set some specific goals around that, maybe using the acronym SMART, so that we can have a clear idea about where we are and where we want to go. There we go. Name it to tame it. My name again is Thomas Brown, and I'm from Qualia Counseling Services. We've got a lot of information on our website, on our Facebook page, and our other social media platforms. Please take a look at all of those, subscribe to us, like us, and be in touch with us if you feel like you need to have a little bit of professional help beyond videos like this. Take good care.